Stephen Bailey was born and raised in Northern California, where his father was a farmer and his mother was an elementary school teacher. Working the family farm, he learned the value of hard work, and instilled with a call to serve, he would enlist in the United States Marine Corps Reserves as a young adult. After graduating from California State University, Sacramento, Stephen served Governor George Deukmejian for nearly 8 years as the Deputy Director, Legislation for the Department of Social Services. While working for the Deukmejian administration, he went to law school at night, earning his Juris Doctor from Lincoln Law School of Sacramento. Shortly after, he founded a nearly 18-year law practice specializing in administrative law and criminal cases. He was a California State Bar certified legal specialist in criminal law, handling the simplest to the most complex criminal matters, including death penalty cases. In 2008, he was elected as a California Superior Court judge. He would serve the people of California until he retired from the bench in 2017 to run for California State Attorney General. As the Republican nominee for Attorney General in 2018, Stephen Bailey was the only Republican candidate in a contested race to receive the California Republican Party endorsement. The California Republican Assembly also endorsed him. During the COVID-19 pandemic, Stephen represented businesses and individuals that were victimized by the punitive COVID-19 restrictions. He continues to help those that are the target of unconstitutional government overreach. Stephen Bailey and his wife Kathleen have been married for 44 years. They have made their home in Northern California, where they enjoy spending time with their children and grandchildren. Welcome to the Modern Assyrian on AGN. My name is Carmen Morad. My special guest today is retired Judge Stephen Bailey, candidate for the newly drawn Senate District 4. Welcome to the program, Judge.
Thank you. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you for taking time out of your extremely busy schedule to have this conversation with the Assyrian community and really valuing the Assyrian voters, which, as you know, are increasing in population, and along with other communities are becoming more engaged and active. The premise of this program, Judge, is civic engagement. We take pride in educating and informing our viewers to become active voters and to know what the issues are. And one of the perks of it is to get to meet candidates like you. So thank you again for being here.
It's my absolute honor to be here and to speak to the Assyrian community throughout the 4th State Senate District.
Thank you so much. Judge, as you and I were speaking earlier, these are exciting times, and we say that about every election, right? But after the 2020 census, there was some serious redistricting done. Some new districts have been created. Some districts have dual representations with some cities and counties and states. I had the privilege of serving on the county's redistricting commission. But let's talk about your district. And I always begin, Judge, by asking, what has prompted you to run for this office?
Well, I'm really focused on public policy and solutions. I spent 8.5 years as a Superior Court judge in El Dorado County. When you're a judge, you can deal with one individual, one case at a time. But what you can't do is address those, and I'll call them the macro problems, the ones that we all face every day, things such as public safety. I can enforce the law as the law is written, but if I believe that the law ought to be changed, it's not the role of a judge to change the law. It's the role of the legislature to do that. We've got some critical issues here in the 4th State Senate District, from public safety and crime to homelessness, to being good stewards of our environment. We have had a series of catastrophic fires within the 4th State Senate District. In fact, I was a victim of one of those fires, the Calder Fire, that nearly burnt into the city of South Lake Tahoe, where I live. I'm very concerned about those issues that affect us all throughout this district. Our environmental stewardship goes directly to how much water we have and our farmers in the Central Valley have. If we're lousy stewards of the environment, we're going to get poor water quality and not as much water delivered to the valley as we need. Crime has become the number one issue. Who better to talk about crime than a judge? I've heard every story there is from people who have committed crimes. Now it's time to go down to Sacramento and make some significant changes to protect our families, to protect our kids. And that's my focus on going down to Sacramento and serving as your state senator.
Thank you, Judge. You mentioned, of course, homelessness, crime, and of course, we cannot not discuss COVID-19 and what it has done to our everyday lives, to our economy, to our education, and so on. But one of the topics that comes up when I attend meetings and gatherings is the increase in crime, Judge, particularly the smash and grab as we see on the evening news, which is so disturbing. And I would really like to have you explain to our viewers and to myself what has happened with that threshold of Proposition 47, where the threshold was reduced to where it was $950 where a theft, it was reduced. And how did that come about to be? And how is that, or is that a factor in what we're seeing in the increase and the lack of accountability and consequences?
It's an absolute factor. Prop 47 was sold to voters based on a lie. We were told that if we passed Prop 47, that we would have safer streets and safer schools, that they were going to take all that money that was going to be saved by reducing felonies to misdemeanors. And we were just going to have so much money, they were just going to dump it all over our cities and counties and solve all the problems. That was never true. Quite frankly, when you decriminalize theft and drug offenses, it doesn't take a rocket scientist to figure out that you're going to get more theft and you're going to get more drug abuse. And that's exactly what we've been saddled with over the last decade here in California. It's one of the reasons why I retired from the bench and ran for California Attorney General, was because I was concerned that voters were being lied to. And in 2018, that wasn't the issue that motivated voters. But I'll tell you, in 2022, crime and Prop 47 and the lies that have been told to us by politicians in Sacramento, it resonates throughout the 4th State Senate District. And we're going to talk about lifting that, the misdemeanor bans, pushing it back to felonies, making multiple thefts a felony again. Right now, you can go from store to store, steal up to $950 and not end up with a felony. You can have misdemeanor after misdemeanor after misdemeanor. That is ridiculous. We should never have been fooled into passing a proposition like that. Having the threshold at $950 is ridiculous. It needs to be reduced back to $400, where it had been prior to Arnold Schwarzenegger agreeing to raise it to 950. If we make these kinds of changes, we're going to see a reduction in crime. We're going to see a reduction in drug abuse because people who are, and I jokingly say this, but acting as pharmaceutical salesmen, basically drug dealers, those people need to be held accountable. And we've basically gutted our drug laws. And I'm not focused so much on the user. I want to provide services to them. But the drug dealer, the one that's selling the drugs on the street, they're selling poison to our kids and they're selling poison to addicts. And we need to address that. Those people need to go to jail and they need to spend some substantial time for those kinds of crimes.
Thank you. It's really important to hear this because all we see is the reports that crime is rampant. We see it on the evening news. We read about it in the paper. It is on social media. But it's really important to have an advocate, especially with you, Judge. You served as a Superior Court judge in El Dorado County, and you've seen both sides of the argument. It's not just about legislation, but let me ask you about homelessness. That's another topic, Judge, that is constantly, whether it's city, county, state, or on a federal level, but we see it on our streets. This is about quality of life issues. Talk to us about what kind of ideas you have, because there is crime included in it, there is substance abuse and mental health, but there is not one solution that we have seen that has contributed to the improvement of this issue.
That's an excellent question to ask because you're exactly right. We can see the results of homelessness just driving down a freeway and looking to your right and to your left. We've got people living in the right-of-ways. We've got people living in our streets throughout the 4th State Senate District. The taking money, we're spending some $2.5 billion on homelessness right now, and it's being dumped on cities and counties. They're and after they've taken the money, we don't really see a result that appears to get anyone off the street. Homelessness is a product of several things. There's a small minority of people who are down on their luck and all they need is a helping hand to get themselves started again. Those are the easy individuals to help. And we need to continue to aggressively help provide services to people who are simply down on their luck. They don't have a job. They lost their homes. Those are the ones that we can put into a home and get them started again. But by far the biggest majority are people that are drug addicts and mentally ill. And some are what we would call dual diagnosis, where they are mentally ill and drug addicts. And to address those, we used to use the criminal justice system to help compel people to get into treatment programs and to get into programs to get them, the mental health services that they need. We gutted those programs. We no longer, because we now say that drugs are a victimless crime, which has never been true. There are victims of drug abuse, not only the addict himself, but the families around the addict who are so concerned about trying to find help and assistance. Same way in the mental health area. Families are victims of this mental illness. We've got to address those issues in a comprehensive way. If a person voluntarily wants to get into a program, we need to have programs available that they can get into. But most homeless and most most drug addicts and most mentally ill don't voluntarily get into anything. And that's why we see them out on the street. They continue down the same path that they've been on previously, and they reduce the quality of life in our communities. We need to get back to using the justice system to basically coerce or compel people to get into treatment. We know from all the studies that it takes time to get someone to, I don't want to say cured of addiction or mental health issues, because you don't get cured, but you can improve it. And the way to do that is to compel people to get into the program, or they're going to spend time in jail. And that's what we used to use here in California. And we didn't have the level of homelessness that we have right now. And so when I get to Sacramento, one of the first pieces of legislation we're going to put in is a comprehensive program of assisting those that just need a hand up, but giving some tools back to the system to get those who are who need assistance and won't willingly get into programs, give the system a way of compelling somebody to participate. And that may be that we charge them with a crime and they'll be in the criminal justice system, and we can put them in jail and put them into drug court. But in other instances, it's simply a matter of having sufficient resources for the Department of Mental Health to be able to assist individuals who would get into a program if we can get them stabilized on their medications. It's not, there's no, one solution fixes all problems. Every individual has to be triaged and treated as an individual, as opposed to every homeless person is the same. They're not the same. And we can do it. We have the resources. We have people that are dedicated in the social services arena to take care of individuals that are ill from drug addiction and are ill from mental health issues.
Thank you, Judge. In Stanislaus County, there was such a proactive program called Focus on Prevention. And the discussion of everything you just so eloquently articulated was worked on and mentioned. It was about, by the time we see it on our streets, as you said, on the freeway, it's a little too late, but to concentrate on the prevention of it and the resources. And it's an ongoing long-term project. It's not a one-time fix-all. So, and it's not illegal to be homeless. Unfortunately, it is all of the risk factors that are all in one, as we see it in children, as we see it in the vicious cycle of drug abuse and recidivism. It's all one. So thank you for mentioning that. And what I would really like to ask you, Judge, is what is the first thing that you will work on as introducing new legislation when you are in Sacramento?
Well, as I just mentioned, I think the addressing of homelessness is critical for the health of our society as a whole. And I'm going to be an advocate for establishing this continuum of care, addressing the problem before it becomes a problem that's out of control. And I'm not talking about the problem as a whole. I'm talking about addressing each and every individual and addressing their problems early on. We know that mental illness, that drug addiction is very much like a disease. It gets worse over time. So if you can address the problem at the beginning, when you first begin to identify that an individual is becoming addicted or is addicted to drugs before they've lost everything, we may be able to move a percentage of people that are addicts out of the system early on before they become homeless. We can address mental health issues if we begin to address them early on as the disease progresses. It's like you get to cancer early, you can cure it. You get to mental health issues early, and you can help a person out and change their direction. And as a judge, that was my goal. And as a legislator, that's going to be a primary goal. In relation to that, homelessness, drug addiction, and mental illness are a substantial cause to crime. And as we talked earlier, I'm going to introduce legislation that would reduce the dollar amount for a theft back down to the $400. So a theft, a misdemeanor under 400, still a misdemeanor. You steal over $400, it's now at least a wobbler, meaning it could be charged by the district attorney as a felony or a misdemeanor. And with that, that's a tool that the prosecutors need to begin to address the problems that we have with crime. We need to make petty theft with a prior, meaning multiple thefts, a felony again. We cannot continue with allowing people to commit crime after crime after crime and have them all charged as a misdemeanor. That rewards thieves. And we can't continue to reward thieves. There has to be a consequence. So we're going to make some significant changes when I get to Sacramento. And by the way, there are only 40 members in the state Senate. I'll be one of those 40, and we're going to be able to have an impact. And I'll look for common ground with Democrats. We're not going to Sacramento to, be a one-man band. We've got to get 21 votes to get our legislation through. I'm going to be looking for common ground with my Democrat colleagues.
Judge, it's about the numbers. I'm glad you brought this up. Sacramento being very blue, very liberal, and I have worked with, an assemblyman in our district where he says it's tough. It's tough to pass laws when you don't have the numbers. But let me ask you this. What is the difference, or how can a proposition versus legislation?
Sure.
This isn't a question that is asked a lot. And, I asked this of our district attorney and she eloquently explained it to me, but please explain it to our viewers about how a proposition is written, how it's not a legislation introduced by state legislatures, whether it's the Senate or the Assembly, and how does it become a law?
Yeah, the difference between legislation that one of our representatives would put before the Assembly or State Senate, a proposition is significantly different because that is, it's essentially a law. It is a law, but the people themselves enact it. It is, the idea is presented to the Attorney General currently for the writing of a title and summary. The budget people look to see what the cost would be. That's all put together. And then it takes a certain number of signatures. If it's a constitutional amendment, it takes roughly 1.5 times the number of signatures. Generally, about between 400,000 and 800,000, depending on how many votes were cast in the preceding gubernatorial election. And then if it gets a sufficient number of valid signatures, it's then placed on the ballot. And under current California law, would go on a November ballot, and the voters would be able to vote on it. The key restriction is Once the voters have passed it into law, it is now the law of the state, and the legislature can enhance it, but cannot weaken it. And so some of the things that we've talked about with Prop 47, they're going to require going back to the people for the people to take another look at it. I think the people of California are ready to make the kind of structural changes to Prop 47 that we're going to need to be able to change the direction of our criminal justice here in California. But there are other things that we can do, things such as reducing the level from the 950 down to the 400. That was a legislative enactment, and that can be done. There are other issues that we can address. Things such as petty theft with a prior, we can't go directly and modify Prop 47 because it reduced it to a misdemeanor. But we could change other laws and make some significant adjustments to the area of theft and make those changes. And I think that would make a significant improvement. And we're going to go into Sacramento, and those are going to be areas that we're going to look at. We're going to find where the legislature has the power to make adjustments. We will adjust. Where we don't think the legislature has the power, we're going to go back to the people.
You know, these are the kind of conversations that voters need to hear. These are the conversations that voters need to hear because it will impact. You know, once we understand it, then we understand the short-term aspects of it, the long-term aspect of it. And once people know if they have ideas, they can reach out to you. They can let their views and their experiences be shared because it will make an impact. It is about the people. Judge, let me ask you something about what's going on right now with inflation and the incredible increase in gas prices. Is there anything that can be done with the ridiculous amount of increase in the tax? And we live in a state that we have a surplus.
Exactly. There's no excuse for how high our gas taxes are. The very first thing that would make a significant impact is if we repealed the gas tax, not make it temporary, but go right in and repeal the tax. That would reduce the cost of fuel in California by up to $1 a gallon. Get us more in line with the rest of the country. But other things that we can do, and we are living over a sea of oil. We could drill and we could utilize the resources that we have and that we live over. When you get down to the southern part of the valley, to Bakersfield and areas like that, there is a tremendous amount of oil that could be taken out of existing oil fields that wouldn't have any significant impact on the environment. There are locations over in the Coast Range Mountains where there is significant amounts of oil that we could tap if we wanted to. We could reduce the regulatory impact on refineries and build more refineries. And you know, one of the issues has always been California has been extremely restrictive in its refining capacity. If we expanded that, we would have cheaper fuel prices in California. And we all know that it isn't just gasoline that we're faced with skyrocketing costs. It's diesel. Diesel impacts all our truckers, all our farmers. Everything that shows up at the grocery store is impacted by the cost of fuel. To reduce that cost directly impacts California's middle class that's quite frankly being priced out of this state. And run out of the state.
Thank you, Judge. These are
Excuse me.
such important talking points. Let's talk about the district. It's called the Mother Lode District. Tell us a little bit about that. 13 counties, and of course, Stanislaus County, where we are, is right in the middle of it.
Stanislaus County is the largest county, and the entire county is in this district. But it also starts out in Truckee on the eastern side of the Sierras. It runs through eastern Placer County, takes in all of El Dorado County, which is the second most populous county in the district. It runs through Amador, Calaveras, Tuolumne, and Mariposa, comes out into the valley and takes in eastern Madera County, the northern sliver of Merced County. It goes to the east side of the Sierras and takes in Alpine, Mono, and Inyo counties, goes all the way from the highest peak in the continental United States and being Mount Whitney to the lowest point in the United States being Death Valley. It is a fantastic district, but one of the unique factors here and why I'm so excited about this district is that it takes in probably half of our forests and our watershed. And as I, spoke about earlier in the show, being good stewards of our forests and watershed is critical because when you've got certain choices in California. You can graze that land, you could log that land, or you can burn it down. And we have become masters at burning our forests down. And when we burn those forests, there's a huge carbon impact from the burning of the forest. But worse yet, it pollutes the water that all of us depend on, not just agricultural water, but the water that those of us who live in cities and towns within this district depend on. And I am an advocate for being a good steward, to cutting down the fuels that have contributed to these catastrophic fires, have made our insurance costs in the hills astronomical to the point where many, many people are unable to get insurance for their homes. So until we're better stewards of the environment, it's hard to live here in California, and our costs are going to continue to go up. So I am really excited about this district, about the farm community in our district, the residents that live in our cities in the district. These are wonderful cities to live in. We want the quality of life and the affordability of our cities and towns to be such that our kids don't move out of the state, but can continue to live here.
Thank you, Judge. Beautifully said. We covered COVID-19, we covered homelessness and crime, and of course, what really is important in Central Valley, being the breadbasket of the world, is water. And you had discussed earlier, not only is forest management important, but so is the management of our water and where this water goes and how it's shared and when it's necessary to store it. I would like to invite you to come back, Judge. There's so much to talk about. You are a wealth of information and ideas, and hopefully good legislation that will impact the quality for every Californian.
Love to be back on the show. Love to talk to the Assyrian community. We together can make things happen.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for making time to be on the Modern Assyrian on the Assyrian Global Network. Invite you to come back. Of course, you will be on the ballot on the primaries, and the top two getters will be on the ballot in November.
That's correct. Thank you.
Thank you. It's my pleasure. This concludes my conversation with Judge Stephen Bailey, candidate for the Senate 4th District. I'll see you on the next Modern Assyrian.